Happy Easter, church. I'm so glad you're here on this special Sunday. If it's your first time at South Hills, I'd like to personally say welcome and thank you for joining us. My name is Moses Camacho. I'm the senior pastor of South Hills Church. You've walked into one of many of our locations, and by the time you leave today, you probably will have had some coffee, maybe some candy, heard about how you can get connected, experienced worship, met some new people, listened to a message from one of our campus pastors. But my biggest hope is that you would leave feeling seen and accepted. We are not a perfect church full of perfect people, but we do make every effort to be the perfect place for imperfect people. And if you stick around, I think you'll find that there's a place for you to belong here. I also want to invite you to join us the next week as we kick off a 3-week series, which means for the last 3 weeks of April, we are going to unpack how a movement based on Christ's unconditional love became something that so many now want nothing to do with. It's a statistical fact that fewer and fewer Americans are self-identifying as Christians. Some have never even stepped into a church. Others grew up in one and couldn't wait to get out. And many have experienced things they can't imagine God being okay with. What would it look like to find our way back to something closer to the heartbeat of God? So I hope you enjoy our Easter Sunday, and I also really hope you come back to be a part of this 3-week teaching series.
By a show of hands, raise your right hand if you have ever experienced something really scary. It was like a scare event where your heart just started boom, 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 you started sweating. That happened to me about 2 years ago with my 11-year-old son then. He was in need of help, and we were at a pastor's retreat. We were having a great time. We were chilling. I remember that was a place in San Diego. Our bungalow was just like about 5 steps from the beach, and we had a breakfast on the beach. We had a great time. It was our first time that me and my family went jet skiing. Anybody been jet skiing before? Only me, that's right, no worries, that's only me, it's okay. We went jet skiing and we learned for the first time how to paddleboard. Anybody been paddleboarding? We need to go out, guys. Like, we need to do something. We learned how to paddleboard, and it was super, super fun. And I remember that day, my son was paddleboarding on the shoreline. And then after an hour, he thought he knew how to paddleboard, and he's all like, you know what, I'm gonna go to the deep end. I'm all like, son, stay here, please stay in the shoreline, don't go far. And of course, because he's obedient, he disobeyed me. And all of a sudden, he was in the deep end of the ocean, like from here to where the parking lot is at, from the middle of the parking lot, even further out. And me and my wife were sitting in the sand, having a piña colada, you know? Hey, don't get me wrong, it was virgin, no alcohol. We have piña colada, and all of a sudden, my son is paddleboarding, right? And he falls in the water. He falls, I'm all like, oh, Anna, he fell. I leave my piña colada, I run into the water, and I forgot I didn't have a life jacket on, because I don't know how to swim. And what do I do? And my son, he's desperately like trying to get his paddleboard. He's drowning. And I'm like, what do I do? And I see some kids like were swimming out there. I'm like, hey, dude, get that kid. Get him. He needs help. That's my son. I'll give you $50. Just get him. I was so desperate. I was crying. My son was drowning. He was trying to get some air until he finally got the paddleboard that helped him get back up. And thank God to that 11-year-old kid that knew how to swim that helped him back on his paddleboard. When he came back to the shoreline, he's all like, Dad, I thought I was gonna drown. He was super red. He was crying, and I was crying, and my wife was crying. We hugged him, and we see, son, that's why you should always obey Dad. Stay where we can see you. But he was in desperate need of help. Everybody say help. This side said help. This side said help. Everybody in the back say help. There you go, see? And maybe you've been in a situation where you've needed help before. For some of us, help was most recognized in the flashing lights of a tow truck coming to help you. For some of us, we recognize help, in the sirens of a fire engine trying to put out fire. Or maybe for some of us, we recognize help because we're swimming or in the ocean and we see somebody with a red shirt that says lifeguard, and we recognize that's help. No matter what, if you're here, we've all needed help before. But here's the interesting part. What if we need help and we are unable to recognize when help is there? Interesting enough, this is the Easter story. The Easter story is full of twists, it's full of turns, where even Jesus' followers, people who had faith, needed help and didn't know what to look for. They didn't even recognize Jesus when he was there ready to help them. Let me show you what I mean. In John chapter 20, verses 11 to 15, we'll have the Bible verses for everyone here. It says this, "Now Mary stood outside the tomb crying. As she wept, she bent over to look into the tomb and saw two angels in white seated where Jesus' body had been, one at the head and the other at the foot." Verse 13, they asked her, "Woman, why are you crying? They have taken my Lord away," she said, "and I don't know where they have put him." At this, she turned around and saw Jesus standing there. But she didn't realize it was Jesus. Watch verse 15. He asked her, "Woman, why are you crying? Who is it that you are looking for?" Thinking he was a gardener or the gardener, she said, "Sir, if you have carried him away," talking about Jesus, "tell me where you have put him, and I will get him." Now, when it comes to Easter, we don't often think about this, but follow me for a couple minutes. Mary, who had spent the last few years with Jesus, she left everything to follow Jesus, right? She made meals for Jesus. They had In-N-Out together. They drank coffee, Mary and Jesus. She was even there when he was crucified. Think about it. They were very close. And I bet Mary could identify Jesus from miles away. "Oh, that's Jesus over there. That's my friend." But here, Jesus is resurrected and can't even recognize him. She thought it was the gardener. She was crying. She was in need of help. And it turns out that she didn't even realize and recognize that help was speaking to her. But here's what's interesting. It wasn't only Mary that had this problem of not recognizing Jesus. If we go to Luke chapter 24, verses 13 to 18, it says this, "Now that same day, two of the men were going to a village called Emmaus, about 7 miles from Jerusalem. They were talking with each other about everything that had happened. As they talked and discussed these things with each other, Jesus himself came up, walked along with them, but they were kept from recognizing him. He asked them, What are you guys talking about? What are you discussing together as you walk along?" They stood, their faces downcast. Verse 18, one of them, named Cleopas, asked him, "Are you the one visiting Jerusalem who does not know the things that have happened there in these days?" Now, you have two followers of Jesus, right? They're walking down the road. I don't know, they're probably like walking like, they're all cool, They're walking down the road. If you walk like that before, it's all right. I feel you. It's okay. And all of a sudden, Jesus comes up and starts talking to them, and they're all like, "Who's this guy? What's going on? It was only two of us, but who are you?" And then Jesus starts talking to them, but these friends don't even recognize him. But I like this from Jesus because Jesus here doesn't walk up to apostles, doesn't walk up to preachers or disciples. He simply walks up to ordinary people, to friends. And this gives us a sense of who Jesus is. Jesus will show up for anyone, no matter where you are in life. Here's another example. John 21, verses 4 to 7. It says this: early in the morning, Jesus stood on the shore, but the disciples did not realize that it was Jesus. He called out to them, "Friends, haven't you had any sushi?" No, not sushi, sorry. I mean fish. By the way, I'm a sushi lover and a steak lover. It says, "Friends, haven't you had any fish?" "No," they answered. He said, "Throw your net on the right side of the boat and you will find some." When they did, they were unable to haul the net in because of the large number of fish. Then the disciple whom Jesus loved said to Peter, "It is the Lord." Everybody say with me, "It is the Lord." As soon as Simon Peter heard him say, "It is the Lord," he wrapped his outer garment around him, for he had taken it off, and jumped into the water. So they needed help, right? Jesus' friends had been fishing and they had no fish. They were getting desperate. And on the shoreline, Jesus was there. But they didn't realize it was Jesus. And Jesus, I think he was on the shoreline. He was just meditating, looking at the sea. And then all of a sudden he gets hungry. And he says, "Hey, fellas, you guys hungry? Because I am." "No, we haven't got any fish." And Jesus tells them, "Hey, okay, no problem. Just change your technique. I recommend you cast the net on the other side of the boat." And they did it. And then they had all kinds of fish. But notice that they didn't realize it was Jesus until the miracle happened. They only noticed it after the miracle. Now, let me break down these three stories that I just shared with you. None of these people expected to meet Jesus again after he came back to life. They experienced the experience they went through when they saw Jesus crucified, made it hard to believe that they could have a better future. It made it hard for them to think that they could have a better life. Jesus was gone. But they had Jesus right there. They had help, and they were unable to recognize him. Let's think about this a little bit more. It's kind of borderline ridiculous to think that somehow we could not recognize Jesus, right? It's kind of like, what do you mean? If I was there with Jesus, I would point him out. I would know who Jesus is. But let me put it to you this way. If his closest friends and followers didn't recognize him physically in their presence, why would we assume that we would automatically notice his presence in our life today? People, his friends, his disciples, didn't even recognize Jesus, and he was there present physically. See, on this first Easter, these friends and these disciples had the physical Jesus in front of them, and they were unable to recognize help was there. Why would you and I do any better? If we're honest this morning, I think the same thing happens to us. See, Mary mistook Jesus by thinking he was a what? A gardener. What we know about gardeners is that they work. Anybody have any gardener at their house? Or anybody do any gardening on themselves? You guys do your own gardening? I do. I do it when it's 120 degrees outside. I love the summer, and I love doing gardening then. But gardening, man, they do hard work. They get dirty. They're weeding out. They're supporting, right? The trees, the shrubs, the grass. But what we also know about gardening is that it's slow. You have to be patient. It's consistent work over a long period of time. But contrast to that, we live in a microwave culture. We want everything fast. Man, we even get upset if the movie doesn't download on our phone fast enough. Or I'm going to say this, and I'm being honest, we're at church. we're trying to lose weight, and instead of exercising to lose weight, we drink that one pill because we want to see fast results. We're not patient. We want microwave results. I've done that. I've taken those pills to lose weight and then skip the exercise part. I mean, wouldn't it be great, guys, if we had a process to speed up relationship, to speed up our bank accounts? Wouldn't it be great to speed up success and personal growth? But let me put it to you this way. Why couldn't Jesus be our life gardener? Why couldn't Jesus prune us? Why couldn't Jesus, help us and remove any bad weeds from our lives? He's here to help, and he's patiently working with us to see growth and success in our lives. But Mary couldn't recognize Jesus. Let me put it to you this way, and I'll say this. Let's go to the second story. The disciples missed Jesus on the road because they thought he was a what? Stranger. I don't know about you guys, but I'm around a lot of people. And a lot of times, believe it or not, the people I don't know, I categorize them as strangers. Anybody do that before? If we're honest, we all do that. I mean, we don't want to make eye contact with people because we don't want anybody talking to us. It might be our personality. It might be because how we are, but we avoid eye contact because we don't want people talking to us. Like I said, it might be our character, our personality. But you know what's interesting? That we're not expecting Jesus to speak to us through strangers. And what if we're missing Jesus' help if this is our approach? God can use strangers. God can use the community. God can use the people you don't know in the time of need, in the time when you need help. This is how he cares for us. This is how he guides for us, through the people around us, even through strangers. I would say about 10 years ago, I went to Stater Brothers. Anybody shop at Stater Brothers? No, just me? That's fine, no worries. I love shopping for grapes there. I like the crunchy grapes, the red ones and the green ones. I love it. So I go there for grapes. And I was going through a difficult week that week. And I'll never forget. I go into the fruit side, and I grab like 2 pounds of grapes. And I look at them and I say, ooh, baby, when I get home, I'm going to get you. I ate them all. But I was struggling mentally. I didn't feel Jesus was with me. A lot of things were happening. Watch what happens. A stranger comes. White, tall. I say white because he was dressed in white with the black tie. Tall. Okay? He comes to me and says this. In fact, Johnny, come here. You're the stranger, okay? So I'm getting the grapes. I'm like, ooh, baby, I'm going to get home. I'm going to get you. And then touch my back. This guy comes. He says, you will be extremely successful. And then he takes his hand off me. You can stay there for a minute. You want to preach? No, okay. Okay, and I had forgotten about the grapes. And I turn around. And he's not there. I got the grapes. I put them in the bag. Oh, you can sit down. Thank you, Johnny. I went through every check stand looking for that guy. I asked the people that worked in the fruit section, the people that were stocking them all, like, did you see a guy who was tall? He had all white on with the black tie. He just touched my back. He told me I was going to be extremely successful. Tell me where he's at. I went through every aisle, every check stand, and nothing. Maybe it was a stranger that God was using to speak into my life. And this is what God could do in our lives. Number 3, the disciples didn't pay attention until the miracle happened, right? It was only when the miracle happened, when they got out of that fish for sushi, that they said, wait a minute, that is Jesus. Dude, get off your boat and go hug him. It was only to that instant appearance of thousands of fish that the disciples then paid attention to who it was. I think this happens to us today as well. We all want to trust God, right? We all want God to show up and help us in a miraculous way. But unfortunately, for many of us, if we don't see the miracle, we don't pay attention. If we don't see the miracle, then we don't see Jesus. What if it's God's been showing up in your life in small, beautiful, ordinary small ways, and you've just been missing it because somebody else told you it had to look different? Somebody else told you help had to come differently. But what if God is in your life just showing up in small, beautiful ways? The fact that we are breathing is a blessing. See, and in all these 3 stories, these people didn't recognize Jesus. They thought help was going to come in a different way. And when your idea of salvation is predefined, you risk missing Jesus entirely. When help has to look a certain way, when it has to match your expectations, we risk missing the entire thing, even on Easter. See, some of us have missed Jesus because we're looking for a perfect, shiny angel, when in reality, he might be dressed as a gardener, helping you, pruning you, making you better. And you might say, but where is he? I don't see him. It's because gardening takes time. It takes a while. But he's with you in the good times and in the bad times. See, so some of us have missed Jesus because we're expecting this cuddly, baby from the Christmas story to be sweet and innocent and never asking us to do anything hard. But in reality, Jesus calls us to follow him and follow his way. Not our preferences, not the way we want. We cannot pick and choose what instructions to follow from Jesus. See, some of us have just been looking for the moral teacher. And we've been trying our best to live out by his rules. But we've got this aching sense inside of us that something is still missing. And this is why, because Jesus doesn't only offer a behavior modification. Jesus offers a spiritual modification. It's complete salvation experience. And like we said last week, some of us have been looking for a Jesus who crushes our enemy, who is going to take care of our neighbor, or everything that's going around in our world and everything that's going around us. But what if Jesus is looking to fix what's going on in us instead of out there in the world? See, it's also worth mentioning that you and I can miss Jesus, but just because we miss Jesus like these people, it doesn't mean that he doesn't come and help. We just need to learn how to recognize it. Let's reread John chapter 20, verse 13 or 14. It says this. They asked her, "Woman, why are you crying?" And she says this, "They have taken my Lord away." She said, "And I don't know where they have put him." At this time, she turned around and saw Jesus standing there, but she didn't realize that it was Jesus. So the angels are telling Mary, "Hey, why are you crying?" See, the angels are smart. They know why she is crying, but they still ask her anyways. And she's all like, "Can't you see? This guy named Jesus, my friend, he gave me salvation. He made my life better. He went missing. Did you take him? Where is he at? They have somebody took him." And maybe you and I could relate to Mary on this Easter Sunday because maybe you felt that Jesus has been missing in your life. missing in your troubles, missing in your lowest moments in life, missing in your decisions, missing in your family, missing if you're in college situations, missing in your university, missing because you have a sense of spiritual emptiness. You have no peace. You can't sleep. Missing in your goals and your desires. And you say the same thing that Mary says, where is he who has taken him? Because I don't feel him in my life. But here's what's interesting. The angels, as they were asking Mary, why are you crying? As they were asking her that, they knew who exactly was standing behind Mary. And Jesus was present, even though she didn't recognize him. Jesus was there. He resurrected, he was alive, and showed up in Mary's life. See, the message of Easter is that Jesus didn't come back to life to then go missing in your life. Mary thought that Jesus was missing but was present in her life. These two men walking on the road, they didn't recognize Jesus, started walking with them, but he was there present. The disciples that were fishing didn't realize it was Jesus there until Jesus did the miracle for them. No matter what we are going through, no matter how you feel, Jesus is present in your life. All we have to do is say, God, I don't know what you're doing here, but I see you. In fact, what are you doing in this situation? What are you doing in my life? Help me see. I shared, when I started this message, a story about my son and how he was drowning. How many want to hear how it ended? Yeah. You sure? Come back next week. When my son got back to shore, we hugged him. We kissed him. He was red. He was crying. I wanted to cry. And I asked him, are you okay? Yes. Dad, I was super scared. I thought I was going to drown. And I said, Caleb, why were you scared if you had help on you? He just didn't realize it. My son had his life jacket on. He just didn't notice it. He just didn't pay attention. He forgot that help was on him. And sometimes, just like my son, we forget the help that Jesus is in you, is for you, and wants to make you a better person, give you a better life. And on a day like this, where Jesus resurrected, is a day where he wants to be present in your life. The question is this: are you able to recognize him? See, this is your Easter Sunday. As the band comes up, this is your Easter Sunday. This is your opportunity to recognize Jesus in your life. And my recommendation is this: don't overlook Jesus. Don't overlook, don't miss Jesus in your life. The message of Easter Sunday is that you and I can trust God even when we don't see that miracle. The message of Easter Sunday is that you and I could trust God and recognize God when a stranger is possibly talking to you and sharing his heart about your life. The message of Easter Sunday is that you and I are invited to experience a new and flourishing life that only a gardener could cultivate. Let's bow our heads and let's pray. God, thank you for your word. Thank you for this message, this conversation that you just had with us. God, you're reminding us that you resurrected not to go missing in our life. You resurrected and you went to Mary, you went to your friends as you were walking down that road. God, you were on the shoreline when the disciples were fishing. God, you absolutely resurrected to show up, to be with us, to help us. God, and we recognize this. And we want to just say thank you for not getting off that cross. Thank you for your love. Thank you for loving us. Thank you for taking those nails. Thank you so much, Father, for dying for us and resurrecting on that third day, a day like to this. God, to give us power to come into our life and help us and guide us. See, if you're here this morning, the resurrection isn't just about Jesus coming back to life. The resurrection is about God's ability to bring anything back to life. This is the power of the resurrection. Jesus coming back to life to bring anything back to life, including what is dead, including what is damaged, including if there's something broken in you. If you're going through hard moments with your family, your finances, your relationships, your dreams, can I just tell you that Jesus is here? Don't miss him. He can bring your life back. He can bring your finances back, your health. If you feel damaged, if you feel empty, if there's something broken about you, Jesus is here. And my question to you is, are you going to miss him or are you going to recognize him? Everybody with their head down, eyes closed. This is your opportunity, this Easter Sunday, to say, yes, Jesus, I recognize you. I might not feel you, I might not see you, I might not understand what is going on, but you didn't die on the cross to then leave me, to then go missing. You died on the cross because you love me, to show up in my life. And I want to give an opportunity, if you're here this morning, and maybe you came to church because it's Easter, and maybe you've gone to church before, but you stopped going, and this is an opportunity for you to say, God, I want you. I recognize you. Or maybe this is your first time here and there was something through the worship, the songs, there was something through the message that caught your attention, that is God speaking into you. I want to give you an opportunity. If this is you, if you feel that God spoke to you, if you want to give your life to Christ, or you simply want to say, hey, I want to know more about Jesus. Nobody is looking at you. Everybody's heads are down, eyes are closed. Just raise your right hand so I can know who I'm speaking to. Thank you for the hand. Thank you for that hand. If you say, you know what, I want Jesus in my life. I want to recognize him. I don't feel right. I need to get my life in order. This is your opportunity to recognize and not miss a resurrected Jesus in your heart. Thank you for those two hands that went up. Father, thank you so much. Thank you for this moment. Thank you. Because as your Spirit comes and just dwells in our mind and our hearts, we receive your word and we ask that you help us put it into practice. You help us and guide us as we leave this place. Why don't we stand on our feet? If you raise your right hand, or maybe you didn't, but I want to give you another opportunity. There's a card on your chair that says, I say yes. Maybe you want to give your heart to Jesus on this Easter Sunday. Take this card and just fill it out and turn it back into the connect table outside, and just come to me. I want to share my heart with you. I want to congratulate you for giving your life to Jesus on this Easter Sunday. Let's finish up our service as we sing this last song with the band.